Well, good morning, everyone in the Mountain and Pacific time zone, and to you in Central and Eastern time zone, good afternoon. This is Joseph Antel with Adjuvant Protocols for Healing. It's no longer a new book because it's over a year old, but my book that many of you have, and I was very honored to meet a lot of you and sign some of your books at Back to School for Doctors. It was about 400 there this year in Denver, Colorado. And the purpose, of course, of these webinars is to go into greater depth of how to put a protocol together and how to use these protocols. And these are all recorded and they're on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Joseph Antel, or you can use this link here that's you can see on the screen. Dr. Rogers, a chiropractor in the Midwest, had requested that I create a lecture on female health, and I thought I would start today with the beginning of hormonal development in young people, primarily women, of course. And I entitled this Establishing Hormone Balance from Pubescence Throughout Life. And I wanted to start with these articles that I write out of these calls that are blogs that are put on Saline River Press. And there's, I think, 5 or 6 now. These are based on my different lectures that I do, my different webinars that I create related to my book. And this one relates to this topic because it relates to the beginning of life. And of course, I'm not going to read this whole article. I'm just going to read the first paragraph or two. And because we have to start from the very beginning and understanding that how an individual, a young child, whether it's a boy or a girl, especially, how these patterns and these conditions develop so quickly now in the time we're in the world we're in. And all of us in the natural health field, we're not so interested in the disease part. In fact, the word disease is not even mentioned in my book, nor cure, other than if it relates to a particular condition from a medical standpoint. We're not interested in necessarily fighting what is wrong, but reinforcing what is right. And Dr. Lee's famous words, you can't use poisons to alleviate the symptoms of malnutrition. And that is the whole premise of teachers, mentors like myself, and how we create these networks with you and share our information and what we know. So just to read this really quickly, over my 50 years of guiding people in how to live and navigate through this incredible journey we call life, I have frequently been asked this important question: what do I feed my children to make them strong and keep them healthy? Now, you're going to see as I go through this hour and a half why this is so important. The answer is simple yet profound, and it begins with the basic understanding of what food and eating is. Our first experience of receiving human nutrition occurs over 40 weeks of gestation in the womb. around the clock, nutrient-dense building blocks of proteins, amino acids, all 22, fats, good fats, not bad fats, and carbohydrates saturate every tissue, gland, and organ, all of which are literally in the process of creation in the fetus. Further, these building blocks are based on the best resources available in the mother's reserves. Baby gets the best. One of the definitions of the word mother, matter or mather, means to nourish. After 9 months of complete darkness, surrounded by life-giving fluids and nourishment, birth comes. The transition to the outer world is a monumental adjustment. The first 12 weeks out of the womb are known as the 4th trimester. This is followed by 9 months of food introduction. The cycle of this year establishes the relationship that we have with food and eating for the rest of our life. This cycle determines many of the things we're going to look at today. We're going to look at amenorrhea, menstrual cramps, PMS, PCOS, endometriosis, and acne, if I can get to it in this time, and I will, even if I go over the hour and a half. This is all tied in with this first year. And that's why if I'm going to teach you, really teach you, I have to teach you about how to feed your children, which I have already done in 2 others of my lectures. Breast milk is the most beneficial sustenance for newborns. A suckling infant stimulates the nerve endings in the nipple and areola, which signals the pituitary gland in the brain to release 2 hormones, prolactin and oxytocin. Prolactin causes the mammary glands to absorb nutrients, proteins, sugars, and fats from the blood supply, rather than from the contents of the mother's stomach, and turn them into breast milk. And that's important to note, that what is going on in the blood of during that time, the mother's nourishment determines a lot later on in that, say, woman's life. Eating foods brings the outer world into the inner world of the human body. It is an immunological event involving the endocrine system, the nervous system, and of course the digestive system. Since the 1940s, Western cultures have, for the most part, and I was being kind there, lost their awareness and a connection to real food, because you and I, that's been the focus of our life, is to understand what real food is and to teach it, to pass it on. What we eat has been adulterated to such an extent that there is no longer capable, that it is no longer capable of nourishing the human population. This is why we need supplements, whole food supplements. We have become a culture that no longer honors the life-giving bounty of the nature of nature provided by Mother Earth. Rather, we have become a culture laden with chemicals. And you're going to see in this next hour and a half how this relates to these specific conditions in women. Bleach white flour, high fructose, corn syrup, pasteurized dairy, and trans fats, hydrogenated oils that contain little, if any, nutritional value. Yet they make up 90% of what most of us eat. How do we begin to feed ourselves and our children well? Well, and then I go on to say that, give you the rest of that information. So if you haven't read this article, you certainly a welcome to send this link from Saline River Press, and there's a lot on Saline River Press that will benefit your clients, your family, and yourself. So before we enter into these protocols, we have to remember, get to the source, get to the heart of the matter. And what are hormones made from? Very simply, they're made from unsaturated good fats, unsaturated fatty acids. Remember, and I put this in here because this is important to remember about fats and oils, that bad fats, saturated fats, increase insulin sensitivity. Good fats decrease insulin sensitivity. And of course, we're not talking about diabetes today, but that is very important in relationship to making ample and good hormones. And the regulation of hormones. And we'll see with these conditions that that is very specific, a very specific challenge and a problem. And of course, all 22 amino acids. And if you look it up, of course, they say peptides is the other that hormones are made out of. And of course, peptides are chains of amino acids. So I didn't put that in there. So let's look at some of the huge causes, some of the main causes of issues in women. Now, we're not here to condemn anything that's done from medical science. You know, the pill has helped a lot of people, a lot of women. IUDs also, as far as birth control. So, and other issues as well. But there are certain things about these two that it's important to be aware of. So Lynn, you were going to talk. Lynn's the pro on this wonderful book, and then her comments.
Thank you, Joseph.
You're welcome.
So we've referred to this book quite a bit. It's a book that I've had for a number of years. It was originally an underground book in New Zealand, but now you can find it on Amazon. And I'm sure there's a number of books that may be more current that you can find, but I rely on this one. Mine is heavily pages turned down and yellowed and highlighted and everything and I share it with my young women clients when they're wanting to consider the pill, or if a woman, I'm suspecting the pill is part of her problem. So if you could go on to the next slide, Joseph. I just picked out some of the highlights here on the downside of birth control pills as reported through this book, and it's quite a researched book. They have a lot of studies that are referred to in here. But the pill introduces or induces a biochemical state in the body more like pregnancy than it does normal fertility. So it stops ovulation, and it's often referred to in this book as the never-ending pregnancy. And a never-ending pregnancy comes along with, or pregnancy comes along with its own issues that can show up for a pregnant woman. Thrombosis or blood clots, gum disease is actually, they see that occur in pregnant women. But once they've given birth, their body returns to a more natural condition. But if the person is on the pill the whole time, or the young woman or the woman is on the pill all the time, then they can have these problems ongoing, the never-ending pregnancy. And so the pill alters at least 150 bodily functions, affecting all of the organs. An analysis of the study into the pill found side effects include depression, nausea, vomiting, headaches, urinary and lower genital infections. And oftentimes we're trying to treat that, but we don't realize that the pill is, the birth control pill is part of the problem. They are also cause a host of nutritional deficiencies, in particular absorption of your B1, B2, B6, and B12, as well as upsetting the zinc and copper balance in the body. And that can relate to some of the mood swings, their appetite changes, weight loss, loss of sexual desire. And I've always been taught to think of Immuplex. Joseph will be talking more as a nice complement to get into their diet if a woman is on the birth control pill. And it suppresses the HPA axis, as do all exogenous hormone intake, even bioidentical hormones. So taking the hormones from the outside, taking them into the body, is forcing the body to do something it doesn't naturally do. And it can create, I've seen lab tests come back where the hypothalamus and the pituitary are screaming at the downstream organs of the adrenals and the ovaries and the uterus, trying to get them to stop producing so much hormone or make a change in it. So it can have a role in that. I have two facts. One I wrote on here, and then I have another one that there's copulins, or volatile fatty acids, that are secreted in the vagina that we can't smell them, but men can, or they're part of what stimulates male sexual interest and behavior. But when a woman's on the pill, they don't secrete those copulins. And with that, one study found, and there's a couple others listed in the book, that women on the pill see the world much more platonically and are less likely to be charmed by pictures of babies, and hinting at the pill's influence on their reproductive and sexual interest. And then one more thing that I wanted to say is that when the birth control pill is used, it increases the risk of cancer. And since the breast tissue of teenage girls is still developing, it's particularly sensitive to the overstimulation by synthetic estrogen. Studies have found that using the pill before 20 years of age doubles the risk of breast cancer. So I just find there's a lot of really helpful information, and I share it with my young women, or any women that's having birth control questions, or we're seeing things that we're not getting on the other side of. So I encourage you to get a copy and use it to your advantage. And that's it.
Thanks so much, Lynn. That was great. And it, we look at our world. Let's just take cancer for a second. Breast cancer now is the #1 cancer. Since all of the awareness of cigarette smoking, I think lung cancer is now no longer #1, but I can stand corrected for sure, but breast cancer is right up there, and it may be #1. So it's not that for a period of time, a woman may need to use the pill to get things under control, but let's not forget the base that we need to build from a nutritional standpoint, so that eventually they can get off that and function normally. But this is the age that we are in, of the synthetic world, and it does affect everything else. The other that ties in with this, and throughout this webinar, I'm going to give you different research based on, I'm not going to read all of these articles, but read you parts of this. And so that you understand that the food that now we are responsible for, that determines the outcome later on in life, especially with these many conditions with young women. So the public's concern that the hormonal treatment of animals for growth and production will harm human health by increasing tumor growth in people who have cancer, or will increase cancer prevalence in healthy individuals. Now remember, cancer is the #2, all cancers, #2 cause of death in the world. heart disease, number one. Tumor growth in the world, or will increase cancer prevalence in healthy individuals. In healthy individuals, estrogen given to the animals will mimic estrogen already present in the human body. Now, Lynn just got through explaining that the pill can alter these sensitive hormones. Then you put this on top of it. And so it's been proposed that consuming meat and animals given estrogen will increase human levels and promote cancer cell proliferation. Now, they of course, these studies are done by the meat industry, by the dairy industry. And so in this article, you will see, they say, well, the outcome is undetermined. It's undetermined. They will not accept that this is a real problem. And finally, I wanted to read this. One area of concern is exogenous hormones, estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone, and their synthetic counterparts. Ingested from an outside source, i.e. dairy, meat, may have a disruptive endocrine effect on pre-pubertal adolescence. As a child, a boy or a girl, is developing, it has a huge effect. Now, you all know, as well as I do, nowadays, women, young girls are going into puberty and cycling much earlier, 11 years old. These effects, this is all tied in my opinion. These effects include altered growth and development and sexual reproduction abnormalities in both boys and girls. And so now you can try to get dairy, of course, without these factors, of course, and that's great. But what about meat? So this is a real problem, and so you can. That's why in that article on Feed Your Children Well, I go into finding if you can get raw dairy. There's nothing wrong with dairy. This is a wonderful whole food, but not pasteurized dairy. And the hormonal effect is a big part of this. So let's look at the first condition, amenorrhea. And of course, we know, and I always put these articles in for you because I've read them, and I want you to be sure that you understand what you're working with when you're applying nutrition. Amenorrhea is the absence of menstruation, often defined as missing one or more cycles. So I'm not going to go into this, but and the causes may be and symptoms may be have other effects as well. So I'm not going to read all of this as I say, but the underlying causes, see if there's, oh, here they are, the lifestyle causes. Low body weight. Now, many young women are very conscious of their body image. This is a real problem. This whole Facebook issue is really in the limelight right now. And this is one of the things. Too much exercise. Well, young women especially over-exercise to keep their body weight low, and mental stress. And I can tell you, having a 17 and almost a 13-year-old granddaughters, the amount of homework and the stress that they are under all ties in with this. And so these are real challenges. So what, and I've picked out of the protocol, whoops, sorry. I've picked out of the protocol. You can use the whole protocol, but I've picked out 2 products that I feel are the primary 2. And as you can see, in there, I list them, as I always list them in order of importance. Now, you might, when you look at this, you might say, can you give a young woman Utrophin? Absolutely. Any cycling woman can use Utrophin. Very important in a lot of cases. I'm not going to go into this today, but you can read about Utrophin in Dr. Lee's book, and you should all have this book, The Products Bulletin. But I'm going to talk about mainly about OVXP a little bit and Chase Tree. Now, obviously, Simplex F is in here as well, and I'm not going to talk about that because the main 2 is OVXP or Simplex F. Probably it should have an or, and Chase Tree. So OVXP is the best product that Standard Process makes. Now, remember that there is bovine Ovex, and there is porcine, which is called OVXP. Now, why did Standard do that? Because they couldn't get enough bovine ovaries. That's why. And they're going more and more and looking into using more porcine organ substances in the Standard Process line because they just can't get enough. This is a real problem in what they can provide for all of us. So they are expanding. And I heard that Dr. Lee used a lot of porcine extracts in the beginning. When he was trying to find sources, good, wholesome sources of these glandulars. The other is, you'll notice that this is a cytosol extract. So this isn't overtrophin, PMG. This is a cytosol extract. And you'll see this is from the Products Bulletin that Lee described it as an aqueous extract. So when you see this on a label, this isn't a different substance. This is the same as the cytosol extract. So all this means is it's using a different part of that organ tissue that is more functional. It's more stimulating. So very important to remember that. The protomorphogen is more for self-regulation, to remove the burden of that organ, which I'm not going to go into today. I've gone into that on some of my other cases, other lectures. Now, Chase Tree, you will see every condition, every challenge, female challenge that we're going to work with today ties in with too much estrogen, not enough progesterone. And you will see that using Chase Tree at 2 twice a day, I believe I have that correct dose here. If I can get back there, I can't get back. Can I? Oh no, this is, I'm in the article, that's why. So you will see that this is a key player in these 6 conditions that we're going to review today. And so, so not just endometriosis, not just PMS, but amenorrhea as well, because it balances estrogen and progesterone. Nearly 75% of women, think of this, 75% of women are experiencing PMS. It's certainly a health topic on a lot of minds. If you are suffering from PMS, then you experience a number of unpleasant physical, emotional symptoms each month that last between 2 and 14 days of your period. That's half the month. There's discomfort. So it's important to realize, and related to endometriosis, which we'll get to in a little bit. And also, Chase Tree helps to improve fertility, mainly for women with luteal phase defect. So you can read this through and understand more of what this herb does. Uterine fibroids. And you can use it for treatment of enlarged prostate in men as well. And it promotes lactation, so clears up acne, which you'll see at the end of my talk. And it lowers menopausal symptoms, aids in hair growth. And it can be used along with vitamin C, cataplex C, for inflammatory health conditions. So you will enjoy these articles tremendously. Now, so those are the two products that that I want to emphasize with this. And as I say, the chase tree is always 2 twice a day. Now remember that chase tree takes 3 cycles to begin to see it work. So the patience is needed with this. Of course, you can use other sex hormone precursor supplements, like a source of vitamin E, of chlorophyll. There may be iron deficiency or other herbs you can use that affect women's hormone balance and liver. But the main 2 products to think of, you've got young woman with this problem. Make sure you look at her lifestyle. Is she under eating? Is she over exercising? And is she under a lot of stress? But just use these 2 products to begin with. I would love to see them take more. Now, I did not put this in my book where the other extreme is heavy cycles. And the reason is menorrhagia is because we have to determine what the cause is. And usually the cause is these other conditions that I am reviewing with you today. So this article, which I'm not going to review, will give you an understanding of how to determine what is causing it. Is it endometriosis? Is it a PCOS? So now, one of the other things that we started with today is how to eat. We looked at dairy. We looked at some of the other things that women use to alleviate these signs and symptoms. Well, what about sugar? Most people tend to associate sugar as merely a precursor to weight gain, but its effects go way beyond the threat to the waistline. For women especially, a diet full of excessive sugar, which includes all refined carbohydrates, not just the sweet stuff, can lead to significant hormone imbalance. One of the most notable effects of too much sugar is insulin resistance. Now, along with that is what I included in the very beginning. You got what kind of fats are they eating as well? Are they eating trans fats? Are they eating just junk oils? So that's very important. And I think that's all I wanted to read of that one. And again, you can look through this. This insulin, I'll read one more thing. This insulin imbalance also extends to women's specific conditions, such as PCOS, which is when reproductive hormones are imbalanced. You'll see that, too much male hormone. The symptoms of PCOS can be mild or worsen in time and may include acne, weight gain, difficulty losing weight, excessive hair, irregular periods, which is what we're talking about right now, fertility problems, and depression. So once you get excessive sugar out of the diet, if you did just that alone, you'd make a huge difference. And again, another article, which I'm not going to go into, but I try to put as many articles that I find significant for you. The next condition has to do with cramps. And believe me, a lot of women, especially in the beginning of their cycling, and some of them all through their life, that's why they put you on the pill, is it's a real issue. So what are the main two products that 90% of the time are going to clear this up? Calcium lactate, everyone. Crucial for muscle and nerve relaxation. It's really funny. I just had my sister and brother-in-law here, and he gets leg cramps at night, and he takes the vitamin F. He's been taking black currant seed F tablets before he goes to bed, which is supposed to clear it. And he hasn't wanted to take calcium lactate, and he gets these terrible cramps in his legs at night because he thinks it's going to contribute to his osteoarthritis. And of course, I assured him that that wasn't the case, especially 6 calcium lactate tablets. So I left them on the counter. I never said a word because my calcium powder is out there. Oh, in fact, he took my calcium powder. He took a teaspoonful of it. And so he said to me the next day, I had no cramps. And so he's been using it every night. And that's not going to contribute to his osteoporosis. The heavy carbohydrates are going to contribute to that. Inflammatory foods, not blood serum calcium. So very important for anyone with cramps, but especially during menstruation. And of course, the great product Cramplex. Now, so this again is from one of Dr. Lee's books, and he goes into the most important attributes of ionizable calcium, which we've talked about quite a bit. And of course, Cramplex itself. Now, when I first started with Medier in 2000, I was having lectures in my home in Connecticut, and a doctor came and she was having cramps, cycling cramps. And so I didn't know that much. She was going to have to leave. They were so bad. So I had a bottle of Cramplex because my daughter was in college and she would come home on the weekends with similar issues. And so I gave this woman, I think, 3. And she sat there and then called me out in the other room. And I thought, well, she's going to leave, which is fine if she's not well. She said, Joe, I can't believe this. They're completely gone. This was 15 minutes after she took it. And I can tell you from hiccups to menstrual cramps to any kind of smooth muscle cramps, for food poisoning. I've used Cramplex and I just have them, of course, with food poisoning. You know, you're throwing up and you're going both ends, and it just stops it. It slows it down. It relaxes the smooth muscle spasm. In my opinion, all of us should have a bottle of Cramplex in our house for whatever reason. Now, I said smooth muscle. Well, what about skeletal muscle? It works for that as well. So just remember that. This isn't 90%, everyone. This is 100%. I've never not had this product work, and in many cases, complete balance in 20 to 30 minutes. What else in our lives? I don't know if I have to sign in. Whoops. No, I don't want to do that. All right. What else in our lives, in young women's lives, affect their hormones? And, you know, we're going to look at this today, and you'll see on and on. Meat, dairy, glyphosates, wheat products, sugar, cosmetics, plastics, all of this ties in. That's why I teach the way I do, because understanding what the cause is and what the factors are around this, then we can apply the nutrition. But without changing a person's lifestyle, nutrition alone is going to be inadequate. It's not going to do it all the time. And that's why this is standard process, like learning another language. Learning how to live off Mother Earth is a return that is very challenging, because we live in a synthetic chemical world now. That's the world we live in. Beauty products you use could be harmful to your reproductive system. A new study shows how cosmetics used in personal care products can cause changes in reproductive hormones. A lot of you, we're not talking about conception and pregnancy today, but you have a lot of clients that continue to be challenged with conceiving. And what you're hearing today is a real key to it. The beauty products you use can negatively affect your hormones. A new study has discovered links between chemicals that are widely used in cosmetics and personal care products and changes in reproductive hormones. Someone sent me over, if I can find it here. They just this morning, they called me and they said, did you hear that Johnson & Johnson is removing some of their, I think it's sunblock products, because it has benzene in it. So I just looked it up. Long-term exposure means exposure of a year or more. Benzene causes harmful effects on the bone marrow and can cause a decrease in red blood cells, leading to anemia. All these young women using these sun-blocking agents, if it has benzene and they're having trouble with their cycles, menorrhea, amenorrhea, all of it, all ties in and can increase cause a decrease in red blood cells, leading toward anemia. It can also cause excessive bleeding and can affect the immune system, increasing the chance of infection. So I know I don't have to belabor this point with you, but these are the things that as practitioners, we have to teach people how to live. We have to reteach them how to live. So I'll let you read through this itself. Oh, there's one other thing. This Dr. Pollock, what we should take away from this study is that we may need to be careful about the chemicals in the beauty and personal care products we use. We have early indications, geez, if we don't know this by now, that chemicals such as parabens may increase estrogen levels. Well, if estrogen levels goes up, what goes up? Risk of cancer. All of kinds of female issues. PMS, amenorrhea, all of these, because there's not enough balance with progesterone. That's why you need the chase tree to balance this. If this finding is confirmed by additional research, it could have implications for estrogen-dependent diseases such as breast cancer. Here it is. Here's one more that I won't read. Maybe there's one thing I'll read in here. Oh, yes, this is the glyphosate-based herbicides are among the most used pesticides in the world. You see the advertisements, they have determined that it causes lymphatic cancer worldwide, presenting high potential for human exposure. Recently, a debate raised, I don't know why there has to be a debate, risks to human health due to conflicting views over its potential carcinogenic and endocrine disruptive properties. So, and these aren't just being sprayed on our wheat products. These are in any fertilizers that you use, or anything with grasses that in lawn care. On the other hand, many in vitro studies using different experimental model system may demonstrate that this substance can disrupt certain hormonal signaling pathways with impacts on the hypothalamic, pituitary, gonadal axis. Live near a golf course? Do you walk a golf course? Do your clients? That should be on your list. Do you play golf? Women that play golf, they spray the hell out of these golf, probably the most toxic place you can be on earth. It's a golf course. Now, I don't want to be sued by the American Golf Association or whatever they're called, but what about PMS? Again, all of these factors that I'm telling you about food and lifestyle are there. So what are the two products that we want to look at? My experience is, and that's why I put it in my book, yes, all of these products are important, but the main two are Simplex F, pituitary, thyroid, adrenal, here it is, ovary, adrenal, pituitary, and thyroid extracts, all protomorphogens. Now, most of you are familiar with this product. I don't need to go into it. And I like to use at least 3 twice a day, always on an empty stomach, take the protomorphogen. Remove the burden of these 4 glands so that they can function. And again, chase tree. So, and 2 twice a day is my go-to, or my key, the dosing that I've had the most great satisfying results with. And again, I'm not going to get into the chase tree unless there was something in here in particular. It's a beautiful herb plant, isn't it? Chase tree berries. Yeah. Anyway, I've already said enough about chase tree, but great articles that you can review. This relates to the PMS cycle, and this was an important line here. Estrogen rises during the first half of the menstrual cycle and drops during the second half in some women. Serotonin levels stay mostly steady. Now, what have we talked about with serotonin? The pineal gland. So remember that when you're looking at chronic PMS issues. But in women with PMS, serotonin drops as estrogen drops. So there's the imbalance. This means serotonin is lowest in the 2 weeks before the period. Women with serotonin levels are likely to have PMS. Progesterone, here's your chase tree, can have a calming effect on the body because it balances the progesterone, the estrogen cascade. This can ease physical symptoms caused by the body's monthly changes. Remember, women suffer with this half the month, especially younger women, 14 days. Remember, we read that. In women with PMS, progesterone may not have this calming effect. This may make symptoms more severe. So, and then they give you all of the symptomatology, of course. But you really notice this when young women first start their cycles. And of course, once the body establishes this poor nutrition, this poor balance of these hormones, they suffer with it for years until menopause. Seen it many times. So PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I think the two products I listed for this, again, Chase Tree. Oops, is that still loading? I don't know. So polycystic ovarian syndrome, I used my blend, the blend from my book. Now, again, because if you say to me, well, what have you had the most results with? And it would be Chase Tree and the blend. Now, overtrophin is definitely important, or you could use Simplex F there. But the main thing is the fact that you have to reduce the male hormones. So let's look into this a little bit. And I'm gonna just mute everyone out here. Good. For some reason, these aren't opening up. Oh, there they are. Is this still loading, Lynn? Oh, there it goes. Okay. There it goes. Okay, it's working. Let's see. Let me just mute everyone out here. Excuse the pause here. Pesticides in produce, hormones in milk, antibiotics in meat. What are all these extra ingredients doing in our food? Improved testing methods. So I don't want to get into more. People realize the myriad of chemicals. And again, another article. So I don't want to go into this now. Oh, here it is. Hormones have been used for decades in meat and dairy industries. Synthetic estrogens and testosterone are the most common. Typically, farmers implant a pellet in the cow's ear at the early age. It increases hormones throughout the animal's life. They also, so if you were born in the 50s and 60s, they were also injecting, just so you're aware, because you've got older clients with problems, with this diethylstilbestrol, DES. We've all heard of that over the years. Now, they took it out, but it took them 30 years, 50s, 60s, 70s, to finally take that out. Pretty amazing. And I wanted to go into this other article, though, if it will open. Huh. But basically, in this article, what they're saying that the what they're saying about PCOS, that's very important, that it's too much male hormone. Yeah, in this other article, but for some reason I can't open it right now. So let me just mute everybody out here. Okay. And oh, Lynn, for some reason these aren't, huh. Okay, well, I know what I can do is, let me, I'll go back to the other one. That's all right. I can get it to this one. For some reason, maybe with your phone, it didn't open up, but. Oh, these didn't load either. Oh, that's unfortunate.
I don't know what the, I
Well,
don't know what the problem is.
They didn't load. So let me go back to.
Go back to your original one from Ellen.
Yeah, I can just go back to that and use that at the end here. It could be because you loaded it from Telluride here. So, oh, okay, here we are. Okay. Yeah, because I'd like to, if this will work. Yes. Okay. So here is the key, everyone. Androgens, or male hormones, control the development of male traits. While all women produce some amounts of androgens, those with PCOS have more androgens than normal. Now, you can read the rest of this article, but you'll see that PCOS is a high androgen problem. The follicles grow and build up fluid, but the eggs do not get released. Ovulation does not occur, and the follicles might turn into cysts. Women with PCOS also produce excess estrogen as well. And so what I have used very successfully over the years is, again, Chase Tree, 2 twice a day. And from my book on page 397, we do have this page memorized. We've used is the the Pcos blend. Now, which is white peony, licorice, high grade, and schizandra. So schizandra has to do with excessive hormone clearance. That's its claim to fame. It's very good with getting excessive male hormone out, testosterone and estrogen. It's a hormone clearance herb. Licorice high grade has a very similar properties. And then white peony lowers excessive testosterone and estrogen levels. So I don't say that you need to use this forever, but you do need to use it for at least 3 cycles once again. At that the PCOS blend, which is 1 tablespoon a day, or 2 half teaspoons. And believe me, over the years, people have called because they've struggled with this, taken all the drugs, surgery. They said, "Wow, Joe, this just did it. It did it." So those are the 2 that you really want to think about, is the Chase Tree and the blend. Now, if you say, my clients won't take herbs, they won't do these liquid herbs, then you can do Femco and Adrenal Complex, which has those 3 herbs in it. Okay, so you can do that. Now, but remember, when the body reaches the stage of polycystic ovarian syndrome, the question is the immune system now attacking that organ? And that's when you need to add in the Ovatrophin, because that will stop that aggression of the immune system. Now, these are usually females that have had this for a long time. And this doesn't usually show up right at puberty, but soon after, if they have a terrible diet and a terrible lifestyle, shows up quickly. Now, why did I put prolamine iodine? Why did I emphasize that? Prolamine iodine plus, that's 6 milligrams of iodine a day, because it's the mineral along with zinc for the ovaries. So there's more iodine: thyroid, breasts, ovaries, prostate, skin. That is the amount of iodine needed in those in that sequence. So, but that blend, I'll tell you, everyone, it's a winner. And that's why I'm passing it on to you. Now, so yes, and I'll go back to that later. Now, obviously, if we're looking at lifestyle, what can you give your clients to get them on the straight and narrow, something they could read really quickly. And it is this low stress diet. To read this through, give this to every single one of your clients. And it will talk about systemic overload, digestive overload, xenoestrogen, foreign substances. And it breaks it down, the 3 food groups that that should be emphasized. You can put them on a paleo diet, that's fine, but you have to also educate them. Now, there's some good information online about paleo, but this article, this goes back to when I first started in the 70s with standard process, the low stress diet. That's why I put it in my book. This has been my go-to and standby reading for clients. And it will tell you, basically, you don't see grains, starches, or fruits on here. You see vegetables, animal proteins, fats, and oils, because you can live without grains, starches, and fruits, but you can't live without proteins and fatty acids. And of course, you need vegetables. That's your carbohydrate if you're going to have any. So great, the main rules and how to eat well. So what about endometriosis? Now, this is a condition that is very severe, and there's a key factor. The 2 products, once again, are spleen and chaste tree. Many women, though, just so you're aware, their endometriosis, if they've had prolonged cycles, that amenorrhea that we talked about, that I mentioned, that I didn't put in my book, the main problem that women that menstruate too much is, whether they know it or not, they have endometriosis. So what is it? Endometriosis is a disorder in which tissue similar to the tissue that forms the lining of your uterus grows outside of your uterine cavity. The lining of your uterus is called the endometrium. The endometriosis occurs when the endometrium-like tissue grows on your ovaries, bowel tissues. And I've had two clients, one that worked for me for years, a couple years, when I was the rep in Long Island. She had it so bad, she was just going to get a hysterectomy. But she even had it on her intestinal tract. And so her and her husband, of course, wanted to have children. They were at the door for adoption, to adopt children. I told her about this program. I put her on it. And as long as she stayed on the program, it cleared it up. Of course, she used to go in for, surgery, every year, every other year. And they would, of course, freeze or burn them off. And that would clear it for a while, but it would keep coming back. So we heard of this practitioner in Utah. You've heard me tell this story, but I've never recorded this story. She became famous. She has retired now, but she became famous for using spleen PMG at 12 a day. Yes, 12 a day. No other dosage worked that much. Empty stomach. And it would clear up. So this young woman that was working for me, and I had one other case that did it, it totally cleared it up. She ended up having 2 children. She didn't want to keep taking 12 a day. She stopped, came back, and then she had a hysterectomy. But she had her 2 children. So people make these decisions, but this is a tried and true. And I think I didn't have chaste tree at the time, but I used eutrophin for sure at that time. So any abnormal growth, you're going to need to use the panimmune enzymes too of tissue. but I'm not going to get into that now because I wanted to stick to just to the two products. So the two products I'm recommending with this lecture is the spleen, high dosage diffuse, nothing else, and the chase tree. Now, why is that? Well, here's the reason. You could say, well, how does that work? Endometriosis tissue is most often found inside the pelvis, around the ovaries, fallopian tubes, on the ligaments attached to the womb. Now, remember that when she gave birth, this woman that worked for me, she had no trouble giving birth, both children, just so you know, because the endometrial cells were gone on her ligaments. And I'm sure the rest of that area in her uterus. And in the area between the rectum and the womb. It can, however, be found less often in other places too, including the bowel, bladder, intestine, vagina, and rectum. Very rarely can it be found in other parts of the body, including the skin, eyes, spine, lungs, and brain. In fact, this is really what I want you to get. According to Endometriosis UK, the only part of the body that endometrial cells hasn't been found is the spleen. So somehow this practitioner in Utah found out, and she said, well, what happens? So the spleen must know. Her hypothesis to me was brilliant. So if the spleen knows how to get rid of, if it doesn't have the cells in there, it must know how to get rid of it. So that was her hypothesis. And so she started using these heavy dosages of spleen PMG, as I say, 12 a day. And she, as I say, you talk about having a practice where and she specialized in female nutrition and female health, as far as I know. She had the practice where the cars were lined up down the street. They were seeking her because she got good results with endometriosis. You read these articles, more women, about 75%, I believe, of women, maybe it's not that, yeah, I think it was that high, have some type of these cells growing at some time in their life. And you can look at what Dr. Lee said about spleen PMG. And you'll see that it's quite significant to mineral balance, to red blood cell balance, and to white blood cell balance, spleen PMG. And of course, the chase tree is always balancing that, because one of the other reasons you'll read about for endometriosis is, again, high estrogen, low progesterone. So the last part of this that I wanted to get into with you has to do with acne. And what are the three causes? Okay, according to medical science. One is overactive sebaceous glands. Now, this happens a lot in puberty, as you know. Some women and men carry this all through their lives until their hormones actually settle down. Abnormal shedding of skin cells can cause it, and a bacterial infection. So, but this is the one that I really got the most results with here, not ignoring the others. So the fact is that the pores in the skin have a sebaceous fluid. It has a fluid that gets very thick. And that builds up as the picture shows here. You can see that that sebaceous fluid builds up in the pore, and it plugs the pore, and then the body creates an infection up here to get that infected, that bacteria in that pore out. It's a natural occurrence. So if you had a substance that could thin out that sebaceous fluid, that could contribute to clearing severe acne, especially in young people. So what is the substance that thins out that sebaceous fluid? It's very simple. It's zinc. The mineral zinc clears out those pores, helps to clear that heavy sebaceous fluid. And then I use, of course, Thymex, because a lot of that material could go into the lymphatic system. Any excess anywhere in the body doesn't want, it's going to go into the lymphatic system. And then, but the other key here is chaste tree. So now I'm not going to, I said enough about beauty products, so I'm not going to go into that. But here are your two primary products. Now, this is a case I worked with back in 2013. I haven't had contact with this client or the practitioner, but you could see, because of HIPAA laws, I can't show you her whole face, but I can guarantee you that as it was here, it was on her whole face, even worse. And so what did I do? So for the sebaceous fluid, I used the zinc. And then for the other big factor with, and you can read through this, what I did. And this is a whole PowerPoint that I did a while back, but I wanted you to have it. The other has to do with excessive male hormone. And here again is where chaste tree is the second product of importance. Excessive androgen. So you could say, well, if you're going to lower androgen levels with chaste tree, would you want to do it in young boys? Yes. I've also had success with that. 2 chaste tree twice a day, along with zinc chelate. And of course, if you have to work with the oils, if they have oily skin, of course, that's all in that protocol that I gave you there. Oops, sorry. I don't know why that does that. But those are your 2 key products that you want to use for excessive androgen and for the sebaceous fluids creating the infection. So these, in this case, this young woman, the parents took a lot of products. And so you can read this through as to what I used for her. And here is your excessive hormone, the chaste tree, that I listed in my book. And to prevent scarring, because a lot of these young people, especially young women, get very self-conscious, as she was. So you can read through this, and here's the case study. Now, in 3 months, you could see, and I'll bring this up even closer, you can see that it wasn't entirely gone because skin takes time. This isn't all going to be gone in 3 months, but you can see that the infection and the inflammation had almost completely cleared up. Obviously, she was very happy So in all of these conditions that I've talked about today, the excessive hormones, unwanted hormones from foods, and of course, synthetic hormones from meats and xenoestrogens are a huge part of what needs to be cleared out of the body. And so if you go back to, which I will go back to, because we put it at the end, but it didn't come through here. Oops, okay. Just be patient here for 1 second. My chart of my blends in my book, my hormonal blends in my book. You'll see that I also created a hormone clearance and detoxification for males and females. So as the PCOS blend, these are similar herbs, adding one more herb in and taking out the licorice. Licorice for PCOS, by the way, I didn't say, is renowned for resolving that heavy androgen and the inflammation in the fallopian tube near the ovary. And there's research on that. You could look that up. All you have to do is Google licorice and PCOS, and I didn't put that in today. But the final thing you want to look at with these conditions is this blend here. Now, you can see very similar with the male tonic blend, which helps hair prevents hair from falling out. It helps with prostate issues. You can see I used this very similar algorithm in there: white peony, schizandra, white peony, schizandra, white peony, schizandra. And I've added in for liver clearance, of course, the milk thistle. These are I explain how you do this, how you make these blends, very easy. Pour them into a pitcher, stir them up, pour them back into the bottles, and write on the bottle what you're using it for. So whether it's PCOS, whether it's hormone clearance and detox, because this is the vicious cycle that young women especially go through. They never clear out the hormones from the prior weeks and months. They're overloaded. This is why they get acne. And if it's a male hormone, this is why they get PCOS. So clearing these out is very important. And if you have young people that will not stop eating dairy and xenoestrogens, using plastics in their life, and eating a lot of meat with hormone, then something like this could be taken even, once or twice a week. Very successful. And so that finishes this, which I thought I was going to take a lot longer to get through, but this is great that I finished this in 1 hour and 20 minutes. So I'm going to, because you can ask me any question, but questions on this, and I'm sure Tonya and others have questions. I'm going to stop the recording. So in case I get asked the wrong.
Thank you, Joseph.